While in Skagway, Alaska, it's well worth checking out the White Pass and Yukon Railroad. This railroad has been key to the economy of this area since the gold rush days and continues to serve hundreds of thousands of customers from cruise ships. There are lots of online web pages and resources, including Wikipedia, that can help you find the history of the equipment that worked on this railroad. This is White Pass and Yukon Railroad number 60. It's a 460 Baldwin, built in May of 1900. It was purchased new by the railroad, retired in 1942. In 1949, the locomotive was buried in the Skagway River and used to stabilize the track near the embankment. It was common practice back in the day to use old equipment as riprap, so other locomotives, tenders, and even a rotary snowplow are thought to be buried near the river. One example survived the ordeal and is being restored. Although it's not pictured here, look up White Pass and Yukon number 61. It came out in even worse shape than the number 60 shown here. The number 61 was a 280 built by Baldwin in 1900. It was put in the river in 1949 and retrieved around 1990. It was eventually sold to Stockton Locomotive Works, and that locomotive is currently undergoing restoration. I'll attach a link below so you can track its progress. Here you can see a journal box for a freight car, maybe a tender. You can see the axle in the center, and on top of that is a slightly dislodged brass bearing. That brass bearing has a Babbitt liner, and that transmits all the weight from the freight car down onto the axle end. Below that is loose packing. This particular packing is contaminated and migrating outward. The reason I'm unnecessarily knowledgeable about that part of it is that my company makes journal lubricating pads that replaces that loose packing. We're the last manufacturer in the USA, and I'll include a website link in the description below. I make these pads as custom sized to the equipment for which they will be used. I also use extra fabric runs to make stuffed animals. The White Pass and Yukon number 52 was built by Brooks Locomotive Works as a 260 in August of 1881. It was originally at Utah Northern Railway as number 37, renumbered to 94 in 1885. A few years later, in 1889, it was sold to the Columbia and Puget Sound Railroad. Eventually, White Pass and Yukon acquired it in 1898, where it received a Baldwin steel boiler, new cylinders, and a larger smoke box. There it was renumbered to the number 52. Retired in 1936 and stored, it eventually made its way to the depot as a cosmetic display in 2014. The snowplow behind this locomotive is White Pass and Yukon Rotary number 1, built in 1899, retired in 1964, and restored in 1995. It's also in front of the depot in Skagway. This is the USA 909 cupola caboose, built in 1880. It apparently had 9 lives. It was originally a Utah Northern Railway, which was a UP subsidiary, number 71, transferred to Oregon Short Line and Utah Northern Railway in 1889. It was stored in Pocatello, Idaho from 1890 to 1896. Then transferred to Oregon Short Line Railroad in 1897. It was wrecked and written off in 1902. It was then sold to Sumter Valley Railroad in 1903. It was not used by them until 1909, at which time it was repaired and reassigned the number 4. It was purchased by the U.S. Army in 1943 for use on the White Pass and Yukon Railroad, and then destroyed by fire in 1945. It was presumably rebuilt again because it sits in front of us at the depot today. Here comes the 3002, built by National Railway Equipment Company, completed in March of 2020. It was originally built for the Cube Holdings in Australia as the 1109, but it was not delivered. It was retained by NRE as a demonstrator number 1109, eventually completed and sold to White Pass and Yukon in 2020. In this next view, you'll see a great big landslide that's occurred. It looks like some of it goes under the pier, but as a precaution, they've stacked a bunch of ecology blocks and parked a line of the old shovel-nose locomotives in front of it to prevent that pier from getting carried away. That pier still serves cruise ship customers, so it's vital to the economy of the area. These might not be railroad related, but I thought they were pretty cool, so I added these bonus clips from our trip. First up is Le Cheval Rouge, built in 1975 by Marine Industries Incorporated. It's powered by two Caterpillar 3516 diesel engines turning two 94-inch stainless steel fixed-pitch propellers for a rated 3,400 horsepower. It measures in at 85 feet long, 140 gross tons. Next up is the de Havilland Beaver, a floatplane operated by Sea Air in Vancouver, BC, built in 1948. And this last clip is in College Fjord, featuring Harvard Glacier at the end. In the center of your screen, you'll see a section calving off. Be sure to hit subscribe if you want to keep updated on my latest projects and adventures. Thanks for watching.